From the dustlit streets of Guédiawaye to the thunder of European stadiums, the story of Ibrahima Mbaye begins with a boy who carried a dream, the way others carried breath quietly, faithfully, and with an endurance only hardship can teach. His journey was never loud, never framed by controversy or scandal, never built on social media theatrics. Instead, it was shaped by discipline, humility, and a work ethic so relentless that even the great academies of Europe eventually stopped to take notice. This is the kind of rise that doesn't demand attention, but earns respect. The kind of career that proves you don't need the spotlight to shine. He grew up in a neighborhood where football wasn't just a sport. It was a language, a lifeline, a way out. Kids played in narrow, uneven streets between market stalls, kicking worn-out balls patched together with tape and hope. In that chaos, Ibrahima moved differently, calm, composed, already reading spaces like someone twice his age. Coaches noticed something unusual. He wasn't the strongest, nor the fastest, but he had a defender's gift timing that felt almost instinctive. Those early years forged a mindset that would never leave him. Stay grounded, stay focused, stay grateful. His family didn't have much, but they gave him the one thing money can't buy: belief. His mother, in particular, had a way of looking at him as if she could already see the future he didn't dare describe. And in quiet moments, when the city settled for the night and children's laughter faded from the streets, Ibrahima allowed himself to imagine the possibility of something greater. That possibility became real when scouts from Europe began taking interest in Senegal's youth tournaments. Inter Milan, one of the most storied clubs in the world, extended a hand. And suddenly the boy from Guédiawaye was boarding a plane for Italy, carrying a suitcase, a dream, and a promise he intended to keep. Arriving at Inter's academy, he stepped into a world where teenagers trained like professionals, where technique was dissected, where discipline wasn't suggested but required. And Ibrahima embraced it all without fear. What happened next is the kind of success most academy players never experience. Inter's youth team became a powerhouse, and Mbaye played a central role in their dominance. They won the Next Gen Series, a competition often described as the Champions League for youth football. They won the Primavera title, a symbol of Italy's toughest youth system. And in each victory, Ibrahima didn't just rise, he stabilized, becoming a defender teammates trusted and opponents struggled to break down. But even with that success, life at an elite academy is unforgiving. For every player who graduates to the senior team, a dozen others fade into obscurity. Ibrahima knew the statistics, knew the weight of expectation, and still, he refused to bend. He trained longer, studied harder, and molded himself into a modern fullback, disciplined, tactically intelligent, and extraordinarily adaptable. The breakthrough came when he was invited to train with Inter's senior squad. He walked into the dressing room surrounded by champions, world-class midfielders, international stars, football icons he had once watched on television with awe. But instead of shrinking, he absorbed everything: the professionalism, the intensity, the standard required to survive at the top. And when his moment arrived, he stepped onto the pitch, wearing the black and blue stripes with a composure that belied his youth. Still, the path to greatness often leads players away from the comfort of home. To truly become himself, he needed minutes, responsibility, pressure, things Inter Milan couldn't consistently provide. And so came the move that would shape his identity. Bologna, a club known for giving young players space to grow, a club that valued grit over glamour, and a city that embraced him not as a star, but as a worker, a fighter, a defender who would give everything for the badge. At Bologna, he finally became what he was always meant to be: a reliable Serie A defender with more than 130 appearances. A player who could slip into multiple roles across the backline, a professional respected not for flashiness but for consistency. He wasn't the type to dominate headlines, but inside the dressing room, coaches knew his value. On the pitch, he was the one they trusted to shut down danger. And in life, he carried himself with a restraint that made people wonder how someone so quiet could possess such resolve. While many footballers chased the spotlight, Mbaye chased improvement. While others flaunted their riches, he stayed private. His lifestyle was clean, understated, built around family, faith, and routine. No scandals, no drama, just hard work and the determination to build a life that honored where he came from. That quiet discipline carried him across Europe, eventually leading him to CFR Cluj, one of Romania's most successful clubs. There, too, he brought what he always brought: stability, experience, and the mentality of someone who never forgets, the boy who started with nothing but desire. Internationally, he wore Senegal's colors with pride. Representing his country wasn't a dream fulfilled. It was a responsibility accepted. He played in a generation defined by extraordinary talent, and yet his role as always wasn't about being the loudest or the most celebrated. It was about being dependable. Coaches trusted him. Teammates respected him, and fans, especially those from back home, saw in him a reflection of themselves: quiet strength, steady progress, unshakable humility. Success didn't change him. The money didn't change him. The European lifestyle didn't sway him. Instead, he became the bridge between two worlds: the boy from Guédiawaye who refused to be consumed by the fame of football, and the man who built a career on discipline rather than desire for attention. In a sport driven by spotlight and ego, Mbaye remained unmistakably himself. But his story isn't just about football, it's also about identity. About a young man who grew up far from Europe's stadium lights, carving a place for himself without betraying the values that shaped him. Even now, he maintains a mostly private life, investing in family, safeguarding his peace, and using football not as a platform for fame but as a tool to build a legacy rooted in loyalty and purpose. Yet beneath the calm exterior lies a journey filled with unseen battles, injuries, competition, doubts, and the quiet fear every athlete carries, the fear of being forgotten, replaced, or misunderstood. And still, he endures. Still, he works. Still, he steps onto each pitch with the same fire that once pushed a young boy to chase a dream bigger than his circumstances. This is the life of a footballer who never sought superstardom but earned respect in every stadium he touched. And as the story deepens into his lifestyle, achievements, relationships, legacy, and financial journey, it becomes clear that Ibrahima Mbaye isn't just a defender. He is a lesson in perseverance, a portrait of humility, a reminder that greatness doesn't always shout. Sometimes, it simply stands firm. And this is only the beginning. As the seasons rolled forward and the weight of years began to shape him, Ibrahima Mbaye discovered that football at the highest level wasn't a straight line, it was a test of survival. But this was where Mbaye thrived in, because he was loud, but because he was relentless. In Bologna, he learned the subtle art of being indispensable. Coaches appreciated his ability to slip between defensive roles without losing structure. Center back, he could do it. Right back, he was solid. Wing back, he delivered without complaint. And while star attackers grabbed headlines, Mbaye built his legacy one clean tackle at a time. His positioning grew sharper. His discipline, once his quiet gift, became the reason he was trusted in high-stakes matches. But those who knew him understood. Simplicity was his luxury. Stability was his wealth. Even in Italy, a country known for its temptations of fashion, nightlife, and celebrity culture, he kept himself centered. These routines grounded him, kept him from drifting into a world that could easily swallow a young athlete whole. But professionalism doesn't shield anyone from hardship. Injuries crept in small knocks at first, then periods on the sideline long enough to test the patience of even the most disciplined athlete. At times, the future felt uncertain, but Mbaye's response was always the same: adapt and endure. While others chased branding deals, he chased improvement. While others curated lifestyles for the world to admire, he built a life that fulfilled him privately. After more than a decade in Italy, the winds of change arrived once again. to return home not simply as a successful athlete but as a symbol of hope. Mbaye never forgot the kids who still played on the dusty streets of Guédiawaye, dreaming with the same hunger he once carried. The lifestyle he built across Europe reflected this same humility. He preferred long walks, quiet cafes, reading, spending time with close friends, and staying connected to home. His fashion was minimal, his social presence muted, his values unchanged. Financially, he made steady, responsible choices. No extravagant purchases, no impulsive investments, no performative luxury. His goal was always long-term security, property, savings, simple assets. For Mbaye, wealth was defined not by possession but by peace. And in that peace, he found clarity. Yet even with the calm life he curated, football continued to teach him hard lessons. There were matches he wished he could erase, performances weighed down by fatigue or injury, transfers that didn't materialize, moments when he wondered if he was truly living up to the expectations placed on him. But each setback became another chapter in his evolution, shaping him into a player who learned to persevere without applause. It was about fulfilling purpose, about honoring the sacrifices made by family, about proving that humility can coexist with excellence. With time, something shifted quietly in Ibrahima Mbaye's life, a deeper understanding of who he was beyond football, beyond stadiums, beyond the daily grind of professional expectation. When you spend more than a decade in the game, it forces you to confront yourself, your fears, your hopes, your unfinished dreams. Mbaye, always a man of few words, found his clarity in reflection. There were nights in Romania when the snow fell gently outside his apartment window, the city lights dim but warm, and he would sit alone with a cup of tea, replaying the memories of his journey, Italy's roaring crowds, the calm afternoons in Bologna, the early mornings in Milan when he trained before the sun even rose, and those evenings in Senegal when he played until dusk swallowed the streets. He remembered everything, not with nostalgia, but with gratitude, because every chapter, good or bad, had forged him. His lifestyle, always minimalistic, became even more intentional. He learned to appreciate the small things, a quiet dinner with close friends, the peace of a slow morning, the feeling of waking up without noise or pressure. While many footballers lived in a perpetual chase for attention, Mbaye moved like a man who had already found what mattered. He didn't need to announce his journey, he simply lived it. Yet for someone so private, relationships mattered deeply to him. His family remained his anchor. His mother's voice, even now, could calm him in ways nothing else could. His siblings kept him grounded, reminding him that no matter how far he traveled, he was still the boy who once ran barefoot on dusty roads. And though he rarely shared his personal life with the world, those closest to him spoke of a man who loved deeply, trusted selectively, and valued sincerity above everything. Behind that calm exterior, though, was a heart shaped by sacrifice. Because football doesn't only demand your talent, it demands your time, your body, your relationships, your youth. Mbaye understood this more than most. He had missed birthdays, weddings, family celebrations, moments he could never recover, and yet, he carried no bitterness. Instead, he carried purpose. The knowledge that he played not just for himself, but for those who believed in him long before anyone else did. As he grew into the later stages of his career, he also began thinking of what life after football might look like. Not as an escape, but as a continuation. He wanted to stay involved in the game, not as a celebrity analyst or a brand ambassador, but as someone who could truly give back. Maybe coaching young defenders. Maybe building an academy in Senegal, a place where kids could train in conditions he never had. maybe becoming a mentor for those who needed guidance in navigating the temptations of the sport. He knew that countless young talents were lost, not because they lacked ability, but because they lacked guidance. And if there was one thing Mbaye wished he could give the next generation, it was clarity, discipline, humility, the understanding that a career isn't built on moments, it's built on choices, quiet, daily choices that no one applauds. But even as he planned for the future, he remained fully committed to the present. At Cluj, he stepped into the role of a veteran, the calm voice in the dressing room, the player who didn't panic when matches grew chaotic, the one who encouraged younger teammates without theatrics. Leadership, for Mbaye, was never about volume. It was about example. It was about walking into training every morning with the same hunger he had at 17 when he first touched down in Italy. And his financial journey mirrored that same maturity. While some players spent their careers chasing status symbols, Mbaye quietly built stability. His investments were practical real estate, savings, long-term plans designed not to impress, but to secure. His idea of wealth wasn't measured in vehicles or designer closets. It was measured in freedom, peace of mind, and the ability to provide for the people he loved. In a world where athletes are often defined by extravagance, Mbaye's approach was refreshingly grounded. Still, even with his calm life, the battles never truly disappeared. Professional sport is relentless. There were moments when he questioned whether people understood his worth, whether his quiet nature made him underestimated. But with every doubt came a reminder. He had survived the hardest environments: Inter Milan's academy, Serie A's unforgiving culture, the transition to new countries, new leagues, new expectations. Those experiences weren't trophies, but armor. And through it all, he maintained a relationship with his faith, a silent, steady compass guiding him through the noise. He didn't flaunt it, never turned it into a performance, but relied on it in the moments when life pressed in too closely. That faith carried him through injuries, through uncertainty, through the lonely months when recovery rooms felt colder than any stadium tunnel. Now, as he stands in the later years of his football journey, something remarkable becomes clear. Ibrahima Mbaye has lived a career defined not by spotlight, but by substance, not by headlines, but by integrity, not by fame, but by quiet greatness. He is the kind of player teammates trust because he never pretended to be anything other than what he was: a worker, a professional, a man committed to the craft. The kind of player coaches rely on because he listens, adapts, and executes. The kind of man communities admire because he remembers where he came from. He may not be the flashiest defender of his generation, but he is one of the most consistent. And consistency, in a sport built on chaos, is rare and valuable. And so his legacy, still unfolding, will not be measured solely in appearances, trophies, or statistics. It will be measured in the young players he mentors, the communities he uplifts, the family he supports, and the quiet dignity with which he navigated a sport that often rewards noise more than character. Because if Mbaye's story teaches us anything, it's that greatness doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers. Sometimes, it walks the long path without complaint. Sometimes, it rises from the streets of Guédiawaye and builds a life defined by humility, discipline, and timeless resilience. And long after he hangs up his boots, that is the version of Ibrahima Mbaye, the world will remember not the headlines, not the transfer rumors, not the trophies, but the man who proved that you can succeed without losing yourself. The man who showed that a quiet journey can still echo loudly in the hearts of those it touches. And perhaps, when the sun eventually sets on his playing days, he will return to Senegal, maybe standing once again on the very streets where his dream began, watching new kids chase new futures. Maybe he will smile not because he conquered the football world, but because he honored his own path. And in a world obsessed with spectacle, that is a different kind of victory, a deeper one, a lasting one. The journey of Ibrahima Mbaye is not a story of noise, it is a story of meaning, and it will stand long after the final whistle.